maybe a screwdriver though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll make it.
Corey, you probably wouldn't even know him. He was on council for a few years. It sounds like it was a rough.
Was Gunner?
Hugh Giorgini, Bill.
Because I started
Is
talking
the
to
one,
mayor.
Yeah, but that's what I
Hugh
meant to say.
Giorgini, Bill. It's the one where the thing
Not
just got
a
changed.
million years, you know.
Oh, meter change?
Yeah.
Michael,
So,
Yeah, there was.
there was a
Over here, I'm gonna ask you to.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Go over
now
that
they
process.
read it
I didn't even
and
look at
they readjusted back to March.
Ridiculous.
Apparently I
We
could.
had paid bill since then.
Speaking of which, you're gonna have a moment of silence, before the
Yeah.
meeting?
I texted you yesterday to get it all out of the way.
For who, Brian?
These two.
Oh.
After what?
I'm an independent, Brian, always have been, always will be.
What a bunch of. I think it's meter.
No?
But again, you could have a moment of silence, please, as long as I don't think Biden had a shot,
You
I'll
know,
beat Trump, now all of a
We're
sudden he's,
supposed to be paying that.
low hanging fruit.
That's great.
All of a sudden he went from the young guy to the very old guy.
The very.
Do you know which, you don't know which?
Cut check for him, even though everybody that knew him told us not to.
That one started with that one.
How's Ryan doing?
Good.
Yeah.
Is he still alive?
Okay.
Biden.
You think it's 8, 7?
Actually, I think it was the right decision for everybody. It was a hard decision, and it wasn't the right one.
It was the right decision, but it should have been a year and a half ago, at least.
But you know, you see, Brian, I'm being honest with you, I saw him in April, came to one of our conventions, I sat 3 rows and listened to him speak, and he sounded exactly like he did when he first took office.
How long ago was that?
It was April.
April. Now,
Yeah.
did you see the mask lines?
I think that's like, no, he sounded fine, everything was good, I was like, I don't understand what we're talking about being diminished.
Yeah.
And then you turn into the, you know, the debate and go, that ain't the same guy.
Who's that?
Yeah, I mean,
Sounds like that, whatever you attended was a lot like my high school reunion, unless there's drinking going on.
no, it was, like I said, 10 o'clock in the morning, he came to address the IBW, he came in and spoke well. I mean, he's not the greatest speaker in the world, to be honest, but sounded fine, up in his step, looked good.
If you don't wanna do
And
it.
then when he went to the, not the same,
Look, I
I didn't look at.
I've seen it before.
Oh, wait a minute, here comes Connor, don't worry.
Okay. Good, because I questioned it zero. Though we talked about it, it's like,
I'll tell you, that whole doing the job and then trying to campaign,
you know, what was I doing?
take a lot of, out of
I
anybody.
was doing it, you know what?
I mean,
Oh, I was doing the,
you look at any of those guys that,
yeah, I sent it.
become a president, like Barack Obama, he was black hair, played basketball after 4 years, he was as great as anybody. That's 4 years, that's killing you. Then you do 8, you might as well just go hide somewhere.
Is Connor there?
There he is.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Connor.
Just came.
Good to be here. Nice to hear your signature. All right, we have a quorum.
You're
We have a quorum, we can go ahead and get started.
Yes, thank you for
Yeah,
saying
'cause
that.
that's what triggered the whole thing. And I go,
Ontario County Industrial Development Meetings to order. We have one guest tonight, Tom Smith. Tom, from VAS Services. RFPO. All right.
Yes, RFPO.
All right, so we can go jump right into business and go into poster Jack or Sue and Mike.
And Connor. Okay, Postler and Jekyll, you may remember, is a mechanical contractor, and they want to buy a vacant building in Victor, at 51 Victor Heights Parkway. And they've asked for pilot benefits. At the top of the checklist, project checklist, is the evaluation criteria we should use. They manufacture and distribute sheet metal parts, is what they will do in Victor. Put them together and then distribute them from there. It's a vacant building. The total project costs are $2.5 million. They have 16 employees that will be moving there, and over the next 3 years, they'll be adding 5 more jobs. It fits into our economic impact and the general municipal law through manufacturing. It does not deviate from our UTEP on this project. And it fits in our strategic plan as a supplier to existing industries. We verified employment levels. Is the IDA assistance required to be successful? The applicant stated that construction will be delayed, employment goals delayed, and project hindered without the IDA assistance. And would the project have proceeded without IDA assistance? And the answer was to that question was no. The IDA assistance allows the applicant to reach project completion and projected employment in an accelerated timeline. Connor Hartnett from MRB Group is here. He did the cost-benefit analysis for us. And Connor, you want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. We want to just follow that output page that's on the screen here. The first impact that we measured would be during the construction of the project. The applicant stated that they would spend roughly $841,000 locally on interior improvements and a lot of equipment to build out the vacant building to their needs. That level of investment, according to our model, would lead to 4 direct jobs collectively earning $348,000, give or take. Coupled with the indirect impacts, during the construction phase of the project, we estimate the economic impacts will be 5 jobs earning $428,205 in earnings and $1.1 million in local sales or local spending. Any questions on the construction impacts? Great. So moving on to the ongoing impacts, the primary benefit of the project will be ostensibly 18 new jobs moving over from Monroe County to Ontario County. Those 16 jobs that are already in Monroe County will be relocated to Ontario County, and 2 new jobs will be created for this project. So in total on site, 18 jobs that will earn $14 million over the term of the pilot, the 10-year term of the pilot, coupled with the indirect impacts. Again, this is over 10 years. This project will account for 25 jobs earning $19.4 million in wages. Moving down, we'll see our net benefits graph, where the benefits are in blue, costs are in orange, and then our net benefits are the gray trend line there. We can move down to the next 2 tables. So total jobs, this is direct and indirect jobs. Temporary is over the construction phase like we talked about, and then ongoing is the operational employment, those 18 jobs. So we get into the fiscal impact numbers on the next page. The applicant is seeking, in addition to the pilot abatement, a sales tax exemption and a mortgage recording tax exemption. So starting with the sales tax exemption, total is $32,438. The local portion of which would be $15,138. The mortgage recording tax exemption totals of $24,000. The local portion of which is $8,000. So in terms of fiscal costs of the project, it would be those 2 exemptions there collectively account for $56,438. Moving down to the benefits, the primary benefits of this project is associated with the employment and the earnings that would be generated over 10 years. So we see, the standout number in terms of the local benefits is ongoing payroll. of 19.4 million. Again, that's collectively over the 10 years of the pilot abatement. There will also be some additional revenue tied to sales tax, both during the construction and the operation phases of the project. Basically, employees during those phases will spend a portion of their wages locally. Some of that spending will be associated with the sales tax revenue. So we capture that sales tax revenue there. In terms of state benefits, again, this is going to be associated with income tax revenue and sales tax revenue generated by the employment figures. So, we estimate that to be about $1 million. So we see our final grand total, a benefit to cost ratio. Obviously there is a huge benefit with this project associated with the new employment being brought over from Monroe County. So that'll drive our benefits up. In total, we have a 333 benefit to cost ratio to one cost ratio for this project. Any questions here on this analysis?
Any questions? We'd be looking for a motion to use the project.
So move.
I have a motion from Brian.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, carried. All right,
Thank you, Connor.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Go right into unfinished or old business, the UTEP update. Ryan, inform us, roughly.
The quick update is we set our public hearing for August the 12th,
August 12th at 5 p.m.
right in this room. I will send out or Bridget, or actually, we'll send out a meeting invite if anybody's interested in coming in for the public hearing. We'll be right in here. So once that's done, any notes from the public hearing, we'll have a governance committee meeting. We'll go over the notes, any other comments we had. And I did pass on the evaluative criteria to Planning and Environmental Quality Committee 2 cycles ago. Not a lot, a couple questions. Basically, what is this thing that you put in front of me? A couple comments as far as the housing, right? They were wondering why affordable housing wasn't listed in one of the sections, but it was really covered under an umbrella statement, but we can put that language in. That makes them more comfortable, but all in all, it was positive. And once we do that, the governance committee will go over the public hearing notes and then come back to the full board for the resolution. That's it.
Anybody have any questions for Ryan and the UTEP update? None, then we'll run right into administrative motion. We'll go to the minute.
I'll move.
I have a motion from Mark,
Second.
seconded by Amanda. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, carries. The airport update. Mr. Menser.
If you don't have it, I have updated numbers. They weren't reported when I wrote the report. But for June, sales were 3,200 gallons and almost 3,200 gallons of ag gas and almost 13,000 of Jet A. And Tom is here. I think they're on track to break a record, getting near 20,000 gallons of Jet A fuel for July, which is as much as was done in the entire year of Jet A sales back in 2019, 2018 area. So. And other than that, I just wanted to comment, since I found out at the end of our committee meeting that Dan Jablansky was sitting next to me, our assigned planner for McFarland Johnson, will no longer be with McFarland. He's moved on to some educational opportunities. So they'll be assigning a new planner. But in the meantime, we have Zach's staff and all the staff we work with McFarland to get us through any projects and so on for the time being.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Bob? not, FBO update, I could go quick. At the last meeting, we discussed, thought it would be premature, the Air Force Committee thought it'd be premature to start looking for another, or start doing an RFP for a new FBO. So we instructed staff to negotiate an extension. The current FBO. So, who else has anything to add from staff on that?
I don't know. Tom, do you want to brag about the check you just dropped off? I mean,
Well, Bob mentioned it earlier, we were really excited about the traffic that we've seen in, and a lot of, our focus of what our employees are doing is going out and greeting, the flight crews and actually taking the time to find out if we can assist them in any way, not only with the guests that are here visiting Ontario County, but being sure that we offer everything that we have to offer them, including fuel. As Bob mentioned, we were on a really great track, for the month of July until the weather hit us. We actually saw a pullback on some flight traffic, just because of what was happening here in Canandaigua. We don't know if we'll quite hit it, but as Bob mentioned, I went into his office and showed him where we were in the middle of the month. But we're on track with this, we'll hit 20. Don't know if we'll make it. I think we're gonna beat what we did in June. Again, all of us is just staying focused on the guests that are here, and the flight crews that are coming in, being sure that we're serving them a way that, better than what they hope to have here. But we're excited about it. Thank you.
And roadway project update.
I don't have anything other than what we discussed. We're, McFarland's estimated, $5,000 in cost for rebidding, and they're still putting together, new estimates for what it'll cost to actually, what they expect the cost of the project to be.
And
Pat, did you have any updates from?
Yes, we did get a letter from Great Midwest Insurance Company, and they've requested some additional items for us to get over to them to be able to process the claim. So, Bob, I forwarded that to you actually just moments ago, so we could take a look at that this week and get back to them.
Okay.
Okay, is that it for the roadway project? All right, invoices for payment.
Primarily the utilities. There's a large RG&E bill, which was meter change, and I think it's 3 months, reflects 3 months worth of electric at the SRE building. We have a Monroe tractor, and I believe there's one for Gemco. Is it on there still, or you take it off?
No, so the updated one is right here in your
Okay.
packet, yeah.
So additional, there's a Gemco, $1,607 for sorted supplies from Bass or Gemco properties. What else up there? Monroe tractor, same thing. Thing like environmental is the septic pumping service, and LaValle Brothers is they're kind of like the expert contractor that work on the fuel servicing panel. So we had a little repairs and upgrades needed there a couple months ago. And I believe that's it. Anything outstanding?
All right, Mike, got anything to
Date,
add?
no, just,
Regular stuff.
just the regular stuff. Lucky Grill is, you know, they do all the employment verifications and they're monthly to the county.
All right. For a motion to pay the bills.
Move it.
Motion from Mark, seconded by. All right. By Dave. And then, Ryan, we got one vote. Oh, yeah, I gotta vote on that. All those in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Hearing none, carried. There. There you go. Phone ringing. I think I'm ready.
Spam calls, get right in the way.
Spam, get in the
Broke your
way.
concentration.
Broke my concentration.
Motion second vote, I know it's on. So, department update. Really only one, other than, you know, what we did for.
Did you want to do the financial statements at all?
Oh, yeah, you're on the financial side.
Financial statements. Mike, he said he didn't really want to talk about it, so.
Yeah,
He said he didn't have much to say, but.
No, the only thing I would say is we did get our check today that is not represented in these statements, so I think we are about $6,000 above projected revenue. That's at the IDA airport. I'm just kind of just talking a little bit. But all the expenses are falling right in line. There's really nothing here that's out of the ordinary or anything like that. So,
Anybody have any questions for Mike on the financials? All right, that's just information purposes only, so now we can go on to the department.
No.
update.
Yeah. So the department update, we had a conversation, actually Supervisor Phillips called a meeting together, last week, with two other supervisors, and in response to your request of staff to have a conversation with the Board of Supervisors about partnership for airport funding. So in attendance were Supervisor Simpson from the town of Canandaigua, which is part of the reason why he was there. The other reason was because the chair of the Public Works Committee, and Supervisor Dave Baker from the city of Canandaigua, and he's there because he's the chair of Ways and Means. And then County Administrator, myself, Michael, and Tate. We gave them really a blow-by-blow on the history of the last 4 years of airport funding from the IDA, and how it affects our budget, and really tried to lay out what projects, what it takes us to pay the bill for the airport, right? Which is a discussion that we've had multiple times in this room. Talked to them about possible solutions, and if I mix characterizing, jump in and, save me. It seemed as though, at least for an initial conversation, Supervisor Simpson understands the importance of the airport, and the importance of protecting the IDA's budget. Supervisor Baker also understands it, but is also less willing to use levy to support the airport, the tax money, property tax. However, what we were really, fishing for at that point in time was at least some acknowledgement that the Board of Supervisors was going to have to take action, probably through that tax, as the airport has become more and more, to Tom's earlier point, it is a travel and tourism driver, and less of a driver for this committee and this board. So that was the initial conversation. It wasn't a surprise. It also wasn't what we wanted to hear. But one other thing that came out of that meeting, and what I think we have to discuss as a board, were other opportunities. The one thing that they did thank us for was that we didn't wait until it was absolutely a break glass situation where we were just out of them. And we've given them a little bit of runway for us all to work on this together. But what they asked us is, have we gone out and looked to find someone to lease the entire property, which would just really pay the IDA to take care of all of it. And there's a couple different ways to do it. We haven't sent that out. It's worth the discussion, because it is another way to manage the asset. It also checks the box for the board, right? Because if we can go back to them and say, geez, we went out there, we looked for somebody to lease the entire property, nobody came and put in any sort of proposal, then we can say we are all the way there now, right? Or if we find somebody that we think can do the job that we want done, then it's another avenue for us to relieve the cost burden on the agency from the airport. So that's what I wanted to update everybody on and get your thoughts on possible next steps. Again, you wanted us to have this conversation. I thank Supervisor Phillips for pulling that, especially that group together, because that's where it has to start. We haven't taken another step with the rest of the board yet, although that will probably come when we do our budget. I will make that presentation to Planning and Environmental Quality so they can see the relationship between the agency and the airport and what it does to the budget. With that, Did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered it pretty well, you know, I was just gonna kind of comment or add on is that, you know, the one sense we got from it was that, at least from the people in the room there, was they don't want to run the airport. They were open to ideas about how to finance, but they certainly don't want to run it. So that was part of the comment of, you know, find somebody to operate. The other was, you know, that as Baker, when Baker mentioned, he says, you know, he felt that trying to use, you know, tax dollars, regular tax dollars, he said, you know, I can't imagine trying to sell this to my neighbors
The other
in
side of the
Geneva
county.
or all over the county and say, yeah, but only the people in, you know, only this small region benefits from that. So, reasonable comment, but that was his thought about not using those regular tax dollars. But, they certainly were open to the ideas. And, you know, again, through the budget process, we did discuss, just kind of put it out there. Maybe they take over certain parts of the maintenance, so on. And that was where Supervisor Simpson was, you know, he was not disagreeable to the idea that maybe the Public Works takes over something, right? That's a slow phase over. But, there is a few different things that we need to look at. They gave us some ideas that we can start pursuing. Again, you know, we're not in dire straits yet, but we certainly need to get that. We need to get some sort of funding stream in line. Because the other thing we brought up to them is, you know, there's certain things you want to get into affordable housing and some of these other initiatives. And we're using money to fund the airport, but we could be using some of the other projects. So they understand that too. So it was a good conversation. Didn't really get a lot of action out of it, but we got them thinking.
I think this conversation and this ask of us was, what, 10 months ago-ish, right? I think that there are more supervisors today than what there were 10 months ago that understand the problem, right? That we've taken them out to the airport and had them walk around and show them all of what we own, which is all of it. And we sat down with them and explained to them the problem. When Jim and I went and met with each supervisor over the course of a couple weeks in May, whatever it was, we talked to them about how the airport is funded. So there's definitely more knowledge of how it works than what there was before. So they're not going to be caught flat-footed or blindsided by it anymore. However, it is not something that I think we're going to get done in this county budget year. So that leads us to, what do we do next while we're waiting for that partnership? Should we continue to wait with this kind of a patient stance, or should we push the issue more? When should we do that, and how should?
When are we gonna run out of money? If nothing changes.
If nothing
If
changes,
nothing changes and we go through with our CIP the way it is, we budgeted our CIP to be at $0 at the end of 4 years. That assumes $300,000 a year in, fee revenue, you know, which is,
And then what let's just assume nothing changes with the Board of Supervisors, and at the end of 4 years, now you're down to 0, now what happens?
well, it's a good question. So the airport doesn't get its grass cut, it doesn't do a lot of things like that. Not that the agency has much. I mean, we stop paying the county for our services, and that would be up to their decision what they're gonna do. And that's it. I mean, that's, you know, that assumes, you know, $300,000 a year, and we go through our full CIP. So, and we have postponed a couple CIP projects, so we don't foresee that happening. That would not be so that's where we are. I mean, that's what's kind of generating. Yeah, because if you look at our numbers, we got $1.7 million sitting in the bank. You know, so again, we're trying not to get to that point where we're down to 400,000, and what are we doing now?
that was one thing.
It is interesting because we can't close it, and I know we've said this before. If we close it, we owe a lot of money,
The IDA does.
yes. And then the question might be, well, what do you do to the airport? Do you force their hand? Well, the IDA is bankrupt. What do you do? But I don't think the IDA can go bankrupt legally.
Correct.
Can't,
So
Can't declare bankruptcy.
you can't declare bankruptcy.
so then what happens? I know it's all hypothetical.
I gotta be honest with you, as far as I know, it's unprecedented. So I'm not sure what would happen.
Who would we owe the money to
The FAA.
after, so is there a period of time in which we wouldn't owe that money? Like, once you stay operational for so long, typically, like, money that's been gifted has like a forgiveness.
I don't think it's gifted. I think it's more or less the FAA puts this
Ever?
money in here to ever, yeah, it's probably just a liability hanging there forever.
Well, they're investing
think.
in, you know, in the multi-million dollars in primary pavement and
Yeah.
the lighting system.
Typically, there's like a useful, like, you've made
But,
the
yeah, they all have a
investment,
useful
you have to
life.
operate for a certain period of time, and each, you know, is it 10 years, is it 20 years? At
Yeah.
some point,
Every project has an assurance period, and that is
right,
based on
that's
the
what I'm
life.
wondering, what we look.
So it all has to be evaluated at that point then.
So we could go back and find which one's the furthest out, and that would be the answer to that question, right?
Yeah.
But I get what you're asking. So what we would have to do first, and this is something we also pointed out to that group too, was the first thing that we did to help alleviate the issue was we pushed the CIP out, right? Because we had projects that were on the books to go out to bid for this year, and next year, and the year after. But we cut ourselves off on the spending part, and we made sure to illustrate that to this group. But we could find out the furthest one out and get an idea of how far.
I just figured if we had an
90% of-
idea.
yeah. It's gonna be, it's further out than what we would run.
Well, we would, okay.
And when is end of 4 years? You mentioned 4 years.
4 years, well, this is our first year, so you're looking at what, next, and then 3 more full years after this. So again, we're not, you know, we're not gonna get there, okay? We'll definitely make some adjustments before I think the lowest we've ever been, it was maybe 500,000, something like that.
Well,
And I
we
think-
would have to make other decisions along the way.
Yeah,
Just pushing out the CIP alleviated some of it on the look ahead for this 4 years. And we're having a pretty good year this year.
Yeah.
So that'll help, but if we say next year, the pipeline dries or we're slow to get projects out, then we would have to look at, well, unfortunately, we'd have to look at what the contract looks like for maintenance and the FBO, right? Because those are cost-cutting measures that we can take. There are things that we can't do. That would be one that we could do. However, that does change the operation. There's nobody out there pumping gas, so we're not gonna get that income either. The operation would have to change, so we would have to talk about that as well. So the reason why we're having this conversation is to make sure we don't have to get there. The hope, of course, when we sat down with supervisors was for them to say, we get it. How can we help? That's not what happened.
But does the county not see this as the Ontario County Airport?
I would say no, but yeah.
I think that's an accurate statement, right? But you also have to, I think there's a couple of things, and I don't know the history of why the airport is through the IDA, but I think they also see that as an installation. The IDA is not the county, so a liability and installation is a liability. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I think that's the way it's perceived. But then again, you know, to Baker's comment, and I think he sees it not an entire county. I mean, I don't know that there's any measurable asset for the town of Canadice or the city of Geneva or town of Geneva, town of Phelps, maybe Naples, maybe not. You know, they've got a winery, maybe they'll find people.
They
who drive it
feel
down.
the same way about Eastview Mall?
Eastview Mall brings in a lot of tax dollar revenue. What does the airport bring in? So, you know, that might be a quantifiable thing. Eastview Mall brings in this much, tax dollar revenue and it's spread out throughout the county. What does the airport bring in? And I'm just saying, I think that's their perception is, what does it do for the town of Canadice? Quite honestly, if I'm gonna go to Canadice and I'm gonna fly first, I'm probably flying into Rochester and driving.
We tried to illustrate what that
So,
is through the economic impact study, which was,
Right.
what, 2.8? If if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, it wasn't, it was,
It was a lot of travel and tourism dollars, and that's what really.
So it's been 4 years, if the airport or the IDA in effect is bankrupt,
Mhm.
and now you've got the albatross, like, of the airport, now it's the county board of supervisors gonna do.
Well, that's why we're starting the conversation now, because we're trying to get that through. There is a benefit. I think everybody sees a benefit to it. I don't know that it's, maybe we haven't quantified it well enough, or given that, say, hey, this is good for the entire county. One of the other tough parts is, the idea would be is, the bed tax, but there's two hurdles there. You're probably fairly aware, right? One is that we've got bed tax, it only goes down above 4 people occupancy. So the other is that the way it's worded, what we can use those tax dollars for, doesn't cover airport operations. That would be a good pot of money to draw into, but we have to have some legislative changes at the state level in order to make that happen.
Right now, what's the Ontario County annual budget, roughly?
I'm thinking, trust me, I'm trying to get there. It is, it's
It
about,
does most of it.
yeah, I'm gonna say, it's not 300, I think it's probably 2, it's.
To what?
200 million.
200
County budget.
It's probably, it's a little bit more than that, but I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Just to put it in perspective, last year, the IDA spent about $350,000 in the airport, just to give you the idea.
It's ridiculous. Right. But it's, you know what it is, though, I mean, and this, I think, part of perception right now is that, well, a comment was made at one point, I think it was, just to you, Brian, and me, but, everything's working fine, what are we gonna look at? So, everybody's happy right now. It's not costing anybody else any money. We're not, they don't think it is, right? But what's really costing us? Well, it's costing us through programs that may or may not go through IDA because of that burden, right? But everybody right now, we're all happy.
But isn't there a possibility down the road, Barry, that county ends up losing IDA and having to take over the airport?
Yeah.
Isn't that where
That might be
isn't that where it plays out for the end?
So, yeah, since an IDA,
Can't go back, right?
bankruptcy is decided by state law. It's a federal program, right? We all know that, but state law determines who can declare bankruptcy and not. IDA doesn't have the statutory authority to declare bankruptcy. And so the general municipal law lays out that an IDA sort of can't just close up shop either, because you have ongoing compliance obligations, you have projects that are outstanding, someone needs to sort of stay here. So after all, cost-cutting mechanisms that could be employed, this IDA still needs to operate, and so does the airport. So yeah, at some point, something will be forced, in theory. Other IDAs that expenses exceed revenue, get money from the county to operate. That's just how it works. And the same would happen for the airport. You would have to support it because, whether you transfer the airport out of the IDA or not is a separate discussion, but county support would be needed to operate both. The only other option would be to merge the county IDA with another economic development organization, which could happen, but would still need, state legislation as well. And that would be merging with, a regional counterpart, and would they want to based on the financial status of Ontario. But both have to continue. So it seems like a game of, at some point, something has to come forward.
I think it's good to know that, and probably wouldn't have been bad to know that a week ago, only because, that question is gonna come up, right? And ultimately, no matter how we get there, so in other words, those two are gonna stay open. We're gonna keep on, like you say, no matter how it works out. And it sounds like if the financial burden gets to be too great, it's gonna be the county that's gonna be helping
One way or the other.
Yeah.
You know, one way or that, what, yeah, either we do it agreeable or it's forced, but it's, so is there a chance that the state would come in and override that, or they're gonna say, county, you take care of it, it's, you're the overarching, organization, you fix it, you
Yeah,
take care of it.
I don't see the state coming in, to be perfectly honest. They would have no incentive to do so. Obviously, if there's health and safety issues at the airport, someone could come in. But that's sort of different as far as, you know, if this is unable to run due to costs, the county appoints all the members and they would say, county, figure it out. Because of the projects you have outstanding, including, you know, bonds and other things, you know, the law is clear that you can't shut down until all of those projects are off the books. At that point, you could shut down, in theory, but while all these projects are ongoing, you can't.
So if we can't close the airport and we can't shut down the IDA, the county's on the hook one way or another, either directly or indirectly.
Correct.
Pay me now or pay me later.
I think the hope on this is for them to, for us to provide them with enough information for them to get there on their own, because I don't want to go all the way to the end of this road. And we tried to illustrate the opportunity loss, and also the idea that it doesn't cost taxpayers in Candidites or Phelps money isn't accurate. Like, there are things that the county pays for that the IDA could be involved with, but is not. Perfect example of that would be the planning department is paying for the rail corridor study, which we absolutely could do, because that is, I mean, most of that study is geared towards developable land, which is what we are interested in. So somebody from Candidice is making that payment now, because we're writing the check over here. And we're starting to have those conversations, because that's been lost over time. And I think we had to do it small, so we could be very frank with that group of people. And we have another opportunity coming up in 2-3 months where this is the IDA budget, this is the airport budget, and to show a committee of the Board of Supervisors, this is what it looks like, this is the map. We can continue to push the issue. But this board wanted to report back on where we were with it. This is where we are with it. We started with a kind of information trading and a little bit of education on the property. I think we've taken that as far as we possibly can. But it was a step that we had to take. Now, what do you want us to do next? I think, you know, one option on the table, and I think we have to keep it on the table, is for an RFP to see if there's anybody that would like to lease it.
I don't understand, who's gonna lease it?
That's my question.
Well,
I
that's,
think the answer to that.
that's what we're gonna find out.
That's what I gotta find out.
Where are they gonna generate
It's a rhetorical question. It's losing money.
Right, what could be the value to leasing?
I mean, now, if somebody looked at it and said, oh, you guys don't know what in the world to do with this airport, and we do, I suppose that's always a possibility, but I hope it's not a likely possibility, so it seems like an empty gesture. I don't know if it's an empty gesture or not.
Until we put one out there, and it's a good idea to put one out there.
There'd be no way for me to answer that question without putting it out there on the street and find out if there's anybody that would be willing or interested.
So what's involved with getting an RFP together and putting it out there?
We would have to talk to McFarland, to say, this is what we're trying to do, and I think, you know, Bob and I would have to sit down and discuss how to make it the most attractive and still give us the most amount of control. That's a conversation we would have with McFarland Johnson, because the risk that you run with here is you lose control, and let's say it's a 10-year lease, just to, you know, throw a number on it. And in year 3, this person realizes that, okay, I can't make any money off of this thing. I was wrong to even accept it. I wish I didn't have this lease, and they just run it into the ground for the next 7 years. Then all we've done is inherit a 10-year problem. We have to get back involved with it as a property owner and pay money to bring it back to what it is right now. That is the risk, and we told them that in the meeting. But that's what I would do, is ask McFarland Johnson, because it's not, I don't think it's not, you know, a crazy thing, right? They do have these examples.
Yeah, I mean, every airport is operated in every different way, you know, by private entities, by some, like, you know, IDAs is fairly unique. And, you know, commercial entities as well. It depends on, you know, what the revenue generating opportunities are and assets available and, you know, development opportunities. And, it's worth something different to everybody, you know. But I think you can drive some interest. You know, if it's put out there, and not just in the local newspaper, I mean, nationally, I mean, it could be an interest to, you know, throughout the country.
Yeah, one pocket might be able to build something on there, maybe.
I'm thinking of doing that.
So what have you been waiting
Oh,
for?
yeah? You know.
It hasn't been.
I see a lot of plastics getting.
But I don't
stored in
wanna
those
put,
hangars.
I don't wanna put all of our eggs in that basket either. I think we, you know, we'll do that, but alongside of that, I think we have to continue to talk to the Board of Supervisors through the committee, I would guess, at this point in time. But I think it has to have a little more teeth to it now than, you know, Dave and I having a meeting with 2 or 3 other supervisors. I think it has to come with some sort of notice from the IDA, right?
At the very least, it doesn't kick the can farther down the road when we have the discussion with the board of supervisors a year and a half from now. Say, well, did you try it? And they said, yes, we did. It's not, no, we didn't. No, we'll try that first and then come back and you're
Right,
still
check that
farther
box.
and farther.
Are there any examples, you said some other IDAs have airports? Do we have any dialogue with them to see like what is working for them versus, or are they all in the same, kind of the same boat that we are?
Most of them that I talked to McFarland on have shifted the responsibility to the deeper pocket.
Okay, because they were the same,
Michael and I went through this exercise
same financial.
8 or 9 months ago, right?
Yeah, I know.
looked at Yates County, and they,
That's a mix, right?
it's hard to figure out how much money, because all of their equipment is purchased through the county, so it goes through Public Works. But our best guess was a couple $1 million, right?
Some of those may be examples when we're talking to the supervisors to say, here's how it works in other counties. We're not, this isn't unique to Ontario, you know, the ask isn't unique, it's, I don't know, what's had to happen in other places too, it might be.
Yeah, I think at Tompkins, I think it's $3 million a year is shifted from general fund to.
Yeah, last time we looked
Might
at,
help too, kind of give some
yeah,
perspective.
if it goes,
I think the point is, we have to accelerate it
Yes.
and not gum it to death with meetings 3-6 months from now. This is, problem hasn't gone away, it's been here, the county hasn't wanted to engage, the Board of Supervisors, so we need to stop messing around and don't chew up 4 years to get to the same point we are, where we know we are today. So, you know, I, again, my emphasis is we have to add a sense of urgency to this issue and start closing doors or opening doors.
Okay.
That's my opinion, but.
And I guess, how would this group like to do that? 'Cause I agree, I completely agree. And through our budget process, we can show them, although that's something that we have not done before. You know, the Board of Supervisors never asked for a budget. To my knowledge, we haven't, at least since I've been here, haven't shared. I'm more than happy to do that. Dave, you're gonna have to help me walk through this a little, because this will go through your committee.
Well, and I think that would be it was interesting, one of the supervisors today just asked for more detail on one of the budgets, so maybe we do that. Maybe it has been that detailed before. We're right at budget season right now, right? So maybe we lay that whole budget out, and possibly in part of we take a look and propose shifting some of the revenue over. We say, look, here's the budget, maybe you can look and we can pick some, we already talked about it and say, look, this is, you know, maybe we take a look at some of the CIP that's been, you know, postponed, and look at rolling that into the budget towards the county. I think if we're gonna do that, I think that part of that conversation, you know, you're right, you know, wait a minute, why isn't it? You like Eastview, like this is an asset. That sounds like it can be an asset, depends on how it's measured, how it's managed, right? But the idea is we gotta get that thought that this is an asset, not just a liability. Right now, it's just, they're looking at it going, it's fine, we don't wanna pick up a few $100,000 bill, we don't have to, and we gotta change that mindset, right? But we could look at that, maybe show them the whole budget, say, look, these CIPs are off, let's pick this project, put it back in our CIP. Because really, I think some of the projects that you were talking about are needed. And it's gonna be a problem if we don't, we gotta take care of it.
That's right. The best way for them to do it is $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 at a time over the course of the next 4 or 5 years. Easy.
If we can start with, you know, something like that, but maybe show them in the budget, show them that whole airport budget, let them put on that for a little bit,
There's an
understand what
old
that.
expression, you have to start with the end in mind. $50,000-$60,000 isn't gonna do diddly to the mess that we've got ourselves into.
Right.
What's it gonna take? I don't know how to get things done with the
I'm saying
supervisors.
$50,000 is easier for them to swallow a year at a time.
I know, but 4 years, I don't know that 4 years is the horizon, but it's gonna take a lot more than that, and I don't know how to get things done.
But it's, you know, and
But
again.
somebody does.
Right, but you know, part of that is, you know, 4 years is if we do nothing. We can start shifting, 4 years turns into 5, you know. So the end goal is that the county realizes that they need to pick up the airport. And in 5 years, it's not gonna be 300,000, it's gonna be 500,000.
Yeah, I just want to say, it's 4 years that we go through our complete CIP right now. We've already pushed off a couple. And there are some projects in the pipeline,
Right.
you know. So let's face it, we've had a good couple of years in the IDA as far as revenue goes. We're already at 400 something, right? Is that what the statement say? So we're already like 100,000 ahead of the curve, but next year we may be nothing. I mean, you know, next year maybe we do 150,000.
Also, I have to bring this up because we're ahead of the curve. But I don't believe that this body exists to solely fund the airport. I like being ahead of the curve because then we can do economic development. If we come up with $400,000 or $500,000 and the bill for the airport is $400,000 or $500,000, we didn't get anywhere. So what I would like to do, to your earlier point, Brian, is show them the budget and say, because of X, which is, this is how much we spend on the airport, we're asking you to pick up this, which is, in my opinion, would be the operational cost. It is maintenance, FBO, and with it would be Bob, because somebody has to manage it, and it would be in building and grounds at that point in time. And whatever that cost is this year, they're gonna have to understand that that's gonna go up, just like any other department would. But that also gives us the ability to keep the fuel sale money that we get to set aside for the CIP. So our local share would be covered by the fuel sale. There's a relationship that we can build here, but we haven't actually asked for it. We've just shown them the problems, and we're gonna come and asking you for help. The next step is September, October, when we build the IDA budget to make the ask. Knowing that it's not gonna happen for 2025, they can prepare themselves from October of 2024 to be ready for January 2026. And if they say no, then we hit them back with, understand, it's 2026 or 2029, one way or the other, you're spending the money.
So simultaneously, to also explore the McFarland angle,
Yep.
you can do that now.
We can start that now, and I would.
I think that's a good idea to try.
I mean, who knows,
Ryan?
we need a motion that.
We may get lucky and
It's outside of the budget.
Yeah,
And Ryan,
somebody coming in, I mean, go ahead.
Sorry,
Who we got?
I wanted
Go
to
ahead.
add something because I agree with Barry's comment. At the end of the day, If things get dire, the state will step in, and the most likely scenario would be to force the county to borrow. And then it would be a levy against all the taxpayers in the county. So one way or the other, the state would step in and force the county, and the burden would fall upon the taxpayers. So I think that's, I don't know if we mentioned that now, but I think that's definitely something that's should be at the end of the day, something that in their minds, the county legislators realize they can't push this off if things really get bad.
So maybe, and I guess, whatever you guys want us to do is fine, but maybe it would be wise for us to have Ed and Barry put together a position paper to give to, I don't know, Dave, would it go to the chairman, or would we get it, whoever we want to go to? Would we want to go to Todd, or just give it to Chris at this point in time, so we have it in it? So when they ask him what happens if, he says, oh, this is what happens if you're spending the money either way.
That has to happen.
Yeah.
We definitely have to have that, and I'm just trying to,
County administrator?
that's a pretty big sledgehammer. So I guess we want to decide how we want to play that, right? You're gonna walk in and say, hey, you're gonna pay me an hour later and hit them over the head with it. It's just, it might.
For you to figure out.
Yeah, I gotta figure that one out. But I think the position is a great idea, and then maybe we just sit with the chairman and just go, look, because maybe him and Chris, and they just sit down, because, you keep in mind, folks, you've been talking about it for a while. I've been talking a little bit longer, but this is brand new to really the financial situation is brand new to the board. This is brand new. So, you're feeling a sense of urgency, but to them, this is brand new. I just brought this up to them. This is, out of the blue, if you will. So, it's a good timing. I think we talk about it at the budget right now. Bring that in full light so they really know, so everybody sees it and knows it, right? Whether we get them to commit money or not, at least we've got everything. The position, I think, it's really important to understand right out of the gate, and maybe Todd and Chris can help kind of steer that. They may want to sit down and learn more, and we can say, maybe they get behind it too. We'll get a couple behind it, significant players behind it. That's right.
I think at the very least, because the question was asked of us the other day about this, so if Ed and Barry can put that together, we can give it to Dave, Jared, and Chris, because they asked us, so we owe them that answer. It's not our fault that the answer is awful, but it's the answer. So there you go.
Yeah.
This is the information you asked us for, whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah, we could sit there, we could just have another meeting, sit down with them, and Todd was there too, remember, he was, he logged in on us, but yeah, so, but that would give us a chance to answer that question,
And that will go alongside with the RFP, which I would need a motion to spend that money on.
So that's what,
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion for an RFP to look for a lease of the airport from Dave, seconded by Mark. Any further discussion on the RFP?
How much is it gonna cost?
That we don't know yet. So how about you make the motion for us to ask McFarland for a cost quote on an RFP, and then we'll bring it back to you next month with the
Back off your motion.
Yeah.
All right,
Adjusted?
all right. Still in the second? Outstanding. All right, any further discussion now? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, carried. And then the other day, we need a position paper, need a motion for that, or is
No, I
that
think
covered
we can-
underneath?
You guys can write that
Well,
up.
we already do.
I'll give you an.
Type right up.
You guys, you have
gotta have one on there.
You've had to load it for the last 6 years, so.
Get that done by tomorrow.
I'll give both of you and that a shout, we can figure out what it should.
Yeah, I think one of the things that'd be helpful, would just be the grant recapture amount. That's a shocking number, that was.
Sorry, what was that?
Like the FAA grant recapture amount.
We looked at that, it was about 25 million.
25 million?
Yeah,
That'd
that's-
be good to put in there,
yeah.
obviously.
Right.
That That's kind of a,
Would you call that?
That
is more than 350,000.
yeah.
Sledgehammer right
You're like,
there.
can we have $500,000 now?
Sledgehammer.
Yeah, it weighs a lot.
That's a big sledgehammer.
That's a big.
10% of your budget.
Right, and then when budget time comes, we'll figure out what the messaging is to the board of supervisors at that point in time, but we'll take these 2 steps first.
All right. Any other discussion on the airport?
Yeah, our,
I'd just like to add something if I may. I've known the, FBO manager for several years. He knows my background in, business development, which is part of the reason that he asked me to come over to work at the FBO. He had mentioned to me the issue that was in front of him, his responsibility to the IDA, to help meet that financial responsibility to the IDA. And with that, we had a really deep discussion about how to increase our service and certainly what we just talked about, making sure that we're driving revenue and meeting expectations or exceeding that for the guests and for the flight crew. But as I mentioned to Rich, I said, it's gonna take a little bit, but I said, I think once we get focused on it, we should be able to start seeing a significant difference, which is what we saw in June. And we're gonna see it again in July. And Rich is happy about that, recognizing that even that, what we brought you as a check, doesn't necessarily meet the financial full burden or responsibility of what Rich wants to provide to the IDA. But if it could be a standalone, if it could meet the full requirement of his responsibility to the IDA. He and I had a discussion about what I've been seeing in June and July when these people are coming onto these planes or coming off of these planes. And where are these people going? And I will tell you that getting out there on the apron and asking them, where are you headed? What are you doing here this weekend? How long are you gonna be around? They're asking for recommendations for hotels, they're asking for recommendations for restaurants, and it could be anything from Victor to Geneva to Naples to here in Canandaigua. And in my head, just listening to this discussion, in my head, which I haven't added it together yet, I'm looking at 6, 7 people coming off of a plane and I'm thinking, how much is that worth to the county? That single plane where we got 7 of them lined up on a Sunday afternoon where 35 people are getting on a plane with kids and coming here to Canandaigua or they're going to Geneva. And in my head, I haven't tallied up the value of that. But I'm thinking, even if it was a standalone and we met the responsibility, financial responsibility of the IDA, and we broke even, have we recognized or given to the county that is worth this to the county? I don't know. What's the tax value? What's the revenue value to that if it's a break even? Even if it's not a break even, I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I can't help but wonder.
Well, actually, we have it electronically, because we did an economic impact study last year. And it wasn't a deep dive, but it at least shows that there was a reason to have. There was an impact, so I can check it with you.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. Yeah.
No, we're good.
No, and that's part of that, again, if they don't want to use tax levy dollars, the other side of that conversation is, but look what it brings, sales tax dollars, it brings. And it's probably, difficult to quantify, but it certainly is a big part of the conversation as we try to get them to realize that this is not just a liability, it's an, the better that airport is, the nicer it is, the more services can be provided up there. There's a payback, right? So it's not that easily, like you say, it's not that easily quantified, but certainly is a true story.
Ryan, that was the first thing that you wanted to do, that economic impact study. Are you happy with it? Like, is it sufficient for your needs to press the case?
I
Or
would have been happier if the number was bigger. Because it's a tough sell. Because essentially what we're doing now is an economic impact that says that we bring in, let's just call it $2.5 to $3 million a year worth of economic impact based on the study that we paid for. We're asking for $400,000 in expense out of the county to cover a $2.8 million income. And maybe the cost benefit to them isn't enough. So the number being bigger would have been best. But it did illustrate that there was something. The other thing that I think it showed, which you didn't have to have a study to show, but it's at least, now you've got 14 pages that lay it out there, is that it does not, it's a nice tool to have. It doesn't bring business in. It brings people in. So it is it is a function of travel and tourism, which is what airports are. So that's the argument that I think we can more comfortably make because it shows that, these are visitors that are coming here. We might, one business that uses it for shipping or for some sort of delivery, right? Maybe Joseph, that's about it though. Other than that, Wegmans will use it, Constellation will use it, others in other counties will use it, but is it the glue that keeps them here? Yeah, probably not. But it is absolutely used by travelers, people that are gonna rent out a lake house for a month, they're coming in and landing there. There are, about 8 packs this year that are gonna use the airport-ish?
Yeah.
Probably, so we don't have an airport that brings 70,000 people in a day, we bring in a band that brings 70,000 people in a day.
We're seeing the things like racetrack. We're getting owners flying in from Tennessee, Florida, they're up at the Finger Lakes racetrack.
Some of them, some people to Del Lago, although most of that traffic goes to Yates, right? I understand. It brings people, and those people spend money, so that's not nothing. But I wish the economic impact said it was more, because then the argument could be,
Another impact.
bold.
That's interesting, Farmington, right, now we've got horse owners that are flying in, going to Farmington.
The horse owner drives his rental vehicle from Hertz back to the airport, peppered with hail, lost the windshield, the whole hood's destroyed with hail.
It was up there for the storm.
He was in Farmington and he had a great time,
Any more action items?
For motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion for Brian,
Second.
second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, carried. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for the discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah.